Thank you. Hello. Do I need both mics? Do I need both? Okay, I need both. Right. I'm not going to do the clicker. I'm going to do it my way. So, social mobility in the UK is at its lowest point in 50 years. Right. That's mad. Like, I found this out last year. I was part of a what do they call it? A consultation by the UN. They have this like group of people who they did a consultation around the UK, going to different cities, of which Leeds was one, and to investigate why social mobility is getting worse and not better, despite the fact that we are thinking about these things and trying to be active in making it better. And it's not like this as well. Like when we say like it's at its worst, this isn't like a little dip or there's been a crazy dip. It's just been steadily declining for 50 odd years. So in this talk, well, I'm going to talk about some. I'm going to talk about some miserable stuff. A few slides of misery, but then it's not all misery. I am going to talk about unicorns and spells. To make it better. Now, this button, yes. So hello, if you don't know me, I just had my intro there. Yeah, accidental CEO of the Coders Guild. The Coders Guild is actually, when I say accidental founder, it's because it started off as a hobby project and then got out of control. And it was a thing that I was doing with some other developers in training new developers in how to actually do the job instead of what university or college thought they ought to know. And then over the years, that kind of took over my life, and then I had to do that for form the Coders Guild, make it a proper company, and do it for an actual job. So it's founded in when we started that project. It became really quickly a project about social mobility and inclusion, because when we were looking at what we needed from potential developers, the things that people were using as markers for what got people into a technical career quickly became completely invalid, and we were looking for things of markers of potential rather than experience, which is a really interesting project to get into about how we actually judge people for potential, and it's actually really, really difficult. I'm 10 years in, and it's still a tough thing to do. It's especially of a thing that moves the marker more than anything. It's about this idea of potential and trying to eliminate bias from recruitment processes. We do a lot around apprenticeships and so on. So there's an apprenticeship bias in this talk, as it's like one of the things that, in that project became an apprenticeship. It became a thing that we worked with the government to create the first round of apprenticeships as they went in for software development, and still continue to do that sort of stuff. And apprenticeships really for me are this like big lever that we can use. The second apprenticeship actually that we did when we started broadening out from software development, the second one was testing, and I'll come back to that because it's kind of super important, as in that's the title of the talk. I had to drop a little slide in for this. I also help run Leeds Digital Drinks, which is a monthly event, last Thursday generally of every month, where we have a little meet up. It's a really fast thing called story time, where someone tells a 20-minute, 25-minute story, and then we all go to the pub. So find out more at Leeds. Oh, and I did promise to mention that it's 10 years old today. Not today. 10 years old this year, Leeds Digital Drinks, and we're going to have a big smash up in July, and you're all invited. So stay tuned. I'll tell you where it is. So. Back to the real talk. So, how did I get here? How did you get here? And I think that's the important thing. How did you become a tester? I have witnessed the lack of audience participation in this room just previously. However, I would encourage you to indulge me and tell me how you got into testing.
I read a job description. And it said all things like you like to find out why things work and different things like that. And ultimately, I really struggle with creating things, but I'm really great at pointing out problems with other people's things.
That's awesome. What are we doing just before?
Oh, just before I got my first job, I left university.
Okay, grand. Who's next?
There was a trainee tester role within the company I was at, and before that I did UAT on a project in a business area I was in, and went, this is interesting, and my friends have always told me I'm pedantic and good at pointing out problems, so it's a perfect place to do it. Before that I was opening the mail in the mailroom.
That's a really, really good one. I will come back to that.
So, I actually came through this. I was originally I lived in America. I've been over there 5 years, and when I moved back home, I decided to change careers because my body couldn't keep up with the blue collar work I was doing. So I came back here and I answered a job I was deliberate trying to get into testing. I answered a job posting that was for an apprenticeship through the Coders Guild, and it sort of took the problem solving from solving everyone's sewer issues in the States, and I brought it through to testing, and I think I'm like a success story out of this really. It's like I'm 4 years in now.
Not a plant. Awesome. Thanks, Jason. One more. I don't know if the mic will go that far.
I used to be assistant manager in a restaurant, but I used to work 80 hours a week, so I was like, yeah, it's not feasible. And then I just fell into a warehouse job. I was like, okay, they get paid by hours. And they had an opening in a super user team, and I had good IT skills. And we had to sometimes do UAT. And at some point, like a year after, on LinkedIn, a headhunter sent me a job opening for business analyst. I had to Google what business analyst is, but I did go for the interview. And they did say, yeah, you have absolutely no experience for that, which, yeah, obviously I didn't. But they said, we've got a test analyst job. Why don't you try that?
That's awesome. Thanks very much. Thank you for indulging me. That could have been awkward for me if you hadn't. You can hear that there's a load of different stories, right? But basically, the route into testing is always an alternative pathway. When we talk about alternative pathways into tech, testing's always alternative, right? There's always a story. No one did their GCSEs and their A-levels and the degree and testing, right? So this is why I feel like testing is like a really important skill set, and I'll come back to this again later on in the talk, but the important skill set is it's a very, very transferable one. That's why we get people that are able to transfer in from other careers, and when we're looking at the future of what these careers can turn into, there's a lot of transferable skills that go on into the future. So this is the thing that came out of my brain as a good slide. Now, where I basically have beef with education. That's kind of my reason for doing the things that I'm doing. But in general, the education system gets us to learn more and more about less and less. So in the science, and then we did biology, molecular biology, and then genetics, epigenetics, and then what's that? Methylation patterns in dormant cancer cells, right? So you can see how that's more and more and more about less and less and less and less. So likewise in the bottom one, no one can see, apart unless you're front row, so I'll read it out to you. History, modern history, 20th century Europe, post-war Germany, West German economic policy, fiscal policy under Erhard, 1963 to 66. Now those things, how useful, do they get more useful? The further you go, it's kind of weird. And then the fractal in the background, right? This is how we actually learn about stuff in the real world. You go one step, and now all of the other possibilities about where you can go because you took that step are now exposed. Whereas the linear thing, it gets more and more narrow as the fractals get more and more expanded, And so this, going back to the workplace learning and apprenticeship stuff, is like that is why transferable skills are so important and so exciting. And we don't learn like that until we stop education, which is weird. I mean, no one ever stops learning. Well, not most people. So real learning works the kind of the fractal way. Now, these are two recent things that I was involved in. This thing here, Unlocking Regional Barriers, that's the report that came out of the consultation that I did with those people from the UN. And the other one is a panel I did. I did a panel at an event a couple of weeks ago, and there's kind of two sets of like stats and findings in these two reports. I've got some notes. I'm going to like have to move this so I can actually see them. So big ones that come out of the UN one. There's 38 billion quid lost into the UK economy because of unequal opportunity. So we're just pissing money away on a country level. The things that don't change. We're also like interestingly, the UK is the least socially mobile country in the developed world, and in most and by most measurements in the whole world, we're really really bad for it. And 7% of people attend paid for education, secondary education, but 36%, the top leadership roles, or everything that's considered a top role, 36% of people. Now, for this report specifically, remember they did this in these like 5 different regions. There were loads of different things in different regions that went into this, but the things that were common across all of them were data gaps, mindset, confidence, transport, and the complexity of apprenticeships. And Leeds, so Leeds got special mentions for the fact that growth here exists. So when you look at somewhere like Cardiff, which is a bit stalled in terms of economic growth, but growth here in Leeds economically is good, but social mobility is down. So it's an interesting place. Also, what's super interesting about Leeds is it's like a little microcosm of the whole country in terms of like the demographic split and the fact that we have like rural areas quite close to the city. So it's a really good place to do experiments. Now, the other report there was a keynote there from this guy, Andy Haldane, and he was making a point of like the lack of investment that there's been in our social capital. So this is why I think these things are so tied in. Like there's been, since the financial crisis in 2008, there's been less and less, in fact, no investment in social capital. It's things like youth clubs and libraries and stuff like that. And that has resulted in we're at a cumulative underinvestment of like 2 trillion quid in the UK. And that puts us in this bad position. Don't worry, the bounce is coming. We're just about at the end of the misery. And also we have this thing that there's a youth unemployment crisis, right? There are 1 million 16 to 24-year-olds economically inactive. So that's not just neat, but some people who are just like off the books. They're just tapped out, or they're sick and what have you. So this all puts us in a position where like all of these things are like compressing on us socially to inhibit our growth and in particular social mobility. And this is a quote I pulled out of the report that kind of like puts it all into perspective, that you are in this situation where there's a glass ceiling. You don't have role models. Your parents have got a fixed mindset. The other things that are in that that report about transport and so things are the things that we can't control. But all in all, the social infrastructure that used to create this movement doesn't exist. And yet, despite that, I'll bring in the unicorns. Now, this is the thing that's really interesting to me, in that we, as a country, as an economy, we are 4th in the world at producing unicorn businesses. That's businesses that turn over $1 billion. So Obviously, ahead of us first is the US and China and India, but this is in numbers. We're fourth. So per capita, we are smashing it. Also, America's really has the most because they buy them before they get to unicorns. Oh, great. The favourite hand has gone up. Question from Colin.
Does that involve people that just declare themselves unicorns? Like there was that person that opened CPT or whatever, who just said we're having a unicorn party.
Oh, right. No, I think this is... these are like multiple verified stats because the economics guy who did his keynote said that we were third, and then I robbed his stats, but I fact-checked it and actually we're fourth. But the important thing also, France and Germany just behind us, but they are both half of what we do in numbers, and they have a bigger economy and they've got a bigger population, and they have been investing in their social capital. So you can see we do things right. You know, we still make impact as a social group, and you know, even though these things seem like woeful, it seems like as a person, you don't have impact. That's not a reason not to do something, or you think your impact is negligible. You know, we all still separate our recycling, right? Even though, you know, there are other organisations that might be producing more harm to the environment than me putting the plastic bottle in the wrong bin. So an example, if you like, of doing something positive. There's a company we work with, Car Finance 24/7, and they deliberately hire from other areas of the business to come into tech. So the apprentice that we had there, they just qualified a month ago, I think, with a distinction. Yes. But point is, they were recruited internally from the call center. So the Car Finance 24/7, massive call center, loads of opportunity there. So they're operationally, they're doing a good job because they're kind of recruitment fees, and they get someone with already has got like domain knowledge of that business coming in. But they did, they deliberately recruit always internally and use apprenticeships to upskill or reskill people in that business. And this is the sort of thing that we can do at scale again and again and again, right? The big number from the UN report thing is that of all of the businesses that they surveyed, and it wasn't just a couple, the businesses that invest in social mobility projects, the businesses that are appreciative and going for things like cognitive diversity and those things, 1.4 times more profitable than the benchmark standard. So it does make business sense as well. It's not just like it's not a CSR thing. It is a sensible business thing to do. Then, so this is what I wanted to go back to. The future of testing. So I know like hiring. So the thing that we've experienced as a provider of testing apprenticeships, that the recruitment of people into these roles a couple of years ago really started to drop off. I know people who run tech recruitment firms who used to have a couple of people who just did the testing recruitment, and then they dropped down to one, and then it became not a specialist role. So, but I'm hopeful, and I imagine that this will come back up, because if you think about the stuff that we're doing with AI and all of the crazy development that's going on with AI coding tools and whatnot, and also like how you put a spec together for what you want that thing to look like. The testability of that output becomes more and more important. So I am hopeful that that we get more testing apprentices over the coming months, rather than less. There's other professions, I think, or areas that are similar, like DevOps and product in particular. And when we think about these in terms of what's changing around how we build digital products, and use the transferable skills that we have from the other areas that we've been working in, and then put those through practice into a new way of working. Again, I think that is that's a future that I want to be a part of. And not just in product building either. Like, I mean, we can kind of think of lots of these things as product building, but when we look at how companies are sensibly, especially the smaller ones, how they are sensibly taking on AI adoption as a long project that is sustainable, and you're not looking for the quick wins all the time. When people are doing that, they're looking for a longer term solution that involves people, rather than I guess the kind of the naive attachment to how do I replace these 5 people with AI agents? That it doesn't really exist. You can see people crowing about it, but you know that that's not gonna work out. And a lot of that stuff as well. That the way you look at where all those things are failing, they're failing at the human machine intersection point, right? And that's where testing exists. So bright future, I think, for people trained in testing, and also people who are wondering where their business analyst skills go now in the new world order, with a bit of testing, probably. Like, there's loads of things I think that you could add the testing skill set to, and be super, super useful in what comes next. So I guess thinking about what's in the news and what's on people's social feeds for the past couple of years, people have been asking what AI will do to developers, what AI will do to testers, what AI will do to business and all of our jobs. But I think that the better question is what are we going to do with AI to make the future that we want? And I do feel like a lot of that stuff is within our hands. Like you make a decision to do something in a certain way, you can have impact, and you can create change. So that gets me onto my last bit. I think I've raced through these slides. See if this works. So my question is, you zap the thing and then you can put your answer in. What will you do to move this forward? Now that will bring up, if I have to get my thing. That comes onto this one. And it loads. So, as more people indulge me, the things will come up. Now, the reason that I've put this into the talk, the first one here you can see, write a letter to the government. That was actually the thing that when I was doing that UN, what's it called? Word begins with C that I can't remember of. When I was doing that thing where you go and tell people what you reckon. At the end of the workshop session thing, they asked us to write down on a post-it note a single thing that you could do that would have impact, that would change it. Like, however little, what will you do in a time frame, and then you go and stick it on the wall. And I like that a lot. Because generally you go to those things, you think, why am I doing this? Why am I telling these people what I think, what my experience is? What are they going to do with it? Are they just going to have a nice PDF for Slaughter and Maze, have a little cheese and wine party, and hand it out to people and talk about what a good job they're doing for social mobility, or are you actually going to do something? And I love that, like a bit like an output or action-orientated person. I like to see that. And also, if you remember back at the start of the talk, I said that I would talk about spells, and it is like a spell. You know, I think like you write it down and you stick it on a wall. It's like a spell. It's a thing that's actually going to happen. And I did do that. I wrote a letter to the government. No reply. But I wrote a letter to the government about the things that I thought they could do to make apprenticeships easier for SMEs, because and that's fun that it came out in the actual report of like in every area. The blockers for social mobility are that SMEs can't really access apprenticeship training, or don't access it rather than can't. And the big businesses tend to see the apprenticeships as, I've got to spend my levy, I'll do this thing, and it's a thing that they have to do. Whereas we get apprentices in the smaller firms, they tend to not do better, but it's a different thing. There's so much goodwill, I think, and potential trapped inside SMEs, in particular for this. Oh no, I have to do some scrolling now. There's loads. This is great. Saved my talk. I was going to stand up here and die on my ass. Right. And the other one is this thing so before I talk about other people's, this thing of the Last Starfighter. I don't know if you know that film from the 80s where the kid plays the video game and it's really, really difficult, and he gets to the end and it defeats the final boss, and then a spaceship comes down. There's a spaceship firing game, and they're like, you've passed the tests, you can come and be a pilot in the intergalactic team, and he goes off and goes into space. And so we could do a thing like that inside an organization, because we're going back to what I was talking about, like we're looking for potential, we're looking for markers, we're looking for the things that everyone was telling me, I'm a curious person, I like to poke things, I like, I have empathy for other people, I like to think about how someone else would use this, so we can do like gamified things of where we can find the sort of people that you're looking for to join your testing team. That's mine. Now I have to try and read these. Right, so kill the capitalists that make this system work. Whose was that one? I'm looking at Colin. He's not. Yes, it was Colin. Are you actually committing to that as your spell?
No, but I think, if you're saying about that there's a system in place, the problem is that there is that aspect of people who have more capital, as you were saying, like social capital, right? People who have that to start with are going to go further than other people anyway. So you do have that kind of problem where unless you can really grab people from the bottom and bring them up, and as you said, there's that mindset, right? So I think there is that bit where you have to have a way of inverting the whole thing, and you can't do that when the whole system is built around, I have got a shit ton of money, I put that into a thing, I want to hire the best people to do stuff, and obviously that only is going to allow me to put loads of money into salaries and stuff like that. So it's like, how do you build something that is going to come from that kind of like loads of people collaborating to build it up? And I think open source was that dream.
Yeah.
Because it used to be like, you could just go and build a thing, and then people would say, oh, cool, right, you can have a job because you've been doing this in the open. But unfortunately, that's kind of no longer the case, because everybody's now relying on open source. So I don't know how you would kind of, make that exist. Not to be like the negative person, but like, yeah, it's like you kind of have to have a thing where we can go back 20 years and everything is kind of gauged around collaboration and not necessarily just getting shit done. Yes.
However, and I think so going back to the unicorn slide, I think that's the thing that gives me hope, right? Like, even though we are in a situation that is difficult, working in a system that from most perspectives is against this sort of thing. For me, it doesn't mean that we don't do it. So same with the recycling, right? You do your recycling because you're doing the right thing, you know? So just because, you know, we do a little bit of work doesn't mean we're going to overthrow the Illuminati and have public executions by Colin's hand. But you know, we still, you know, I guess where I'm at is kind of like like an absurdist position. Like the things are nonsense, but we do it anyway, right? Like we do it because we're people and this is the way we want to be. So yeah, I'll help though if you want. And I know you can have an alibi. I'm not doing any killing. So let me grab to another one. Oh shit. Okay. I thought I hadn't done enough. Right. Well, they're all up there. They're all your spells. You do the things apart from the killing. Thank you very much.